Nothing exists outside of you. Don't take that phrase literally, please. I've seen others refer to you being the only person in your reality, and other people are puppets, and none of that is true. The phrase nothing exists outside of you is not literal. It doesn't mean that you alone occupy the 3D. Of course, there are others in your reality that you're interacting with, sharing good and bad experiences with, etc. What it means is that in your personal reality, you give life to whatever you're putting your awareness or I am on. Something that I do my best not to overconsume is the news, because have you ever noticed that more often than not, the news is always bad? Well, the reason why is because good news doesn't sell and bad news spreads like wildfire. If you remember the early days of the 2020 COVID pandemic, those days were absolute chaos. There was uncertainty everywhere. And yet, because I myself had started playing around with the principles and the law of assumption, I knew that if I kept on focusing on the pandemic by doom scrolling or watching too much of the news, I was misusing my I am. Our consciousness is impersonal and impartial, and it will give life to anything that you entertain long enough or with feeling. However, it will also create and accept any innocent assumption that you make. It's that sensitive. So no matter how small or innocent it seems that you're watching the news to stay informed, make sure that if there's something on the news that you don't want to put too much awareness on, you don't want to focus on too much, please ensure that you're instantly telling yourself in your mind that despite what the news is saying, you reject it as untrue for you. Being the source of your reality means you don't just have the right, you have the authority to do that. We've heard the expression, seeing is believing, many times. Or a variation of that expression is, I'll believe it when I see it. Consider these statements and consider why you're watching channels like this one and taking in content like mine. Because I think that on some level, no matter how tiny that level is, you're not sure that that's true anymore, and you've probably started considering the possibility that maybe the reverse of that first statement is the actual real truth, and that believing is seeing. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't have to believe in the law for it to work. It's working the same way that gravity works to keep us all from floating around one another on the planet. And actually, that would be pretty funny. But do you believe in gravity? Well, it doesn't matter if you do or if you don't, because it's still working. And it always has been and always will be. Therefore, your belief in it is irrelevant. Now, it seems also that I'm probably contradicting myself a little bit, but I'm trying to make a point. Phrases about belief and that there's nothing existing outside of you, those things are available for your acceptance or rejection. You, as the omnipotent / operant power of your reality bubble, determine what you accept or reject. And this includes everything and everyone around you, even people. In my last video, I took an example from my own life where I no longer wanted to be at my old job, and without understanding what I was doing, I manifested myself out of that job and into what I wanted at the time, which was to be a stay-at-home mom. My life brought me to what I was unintentionally at the time. I didn't know that that's what I was doing. I was unintentionally manifesting this change. That's something that all of us have done our entire lives. And we haven't even realized that that's what we were doing all along. But if you start to get very honest with yourself and you begin to assess the events in your life that meant something important to you, whether these were favorable or unfavorable events, and you start to reverse engineer or look back to that time in your life, look at it in hindsight, it will become very clear how your desire or how what happened came to fruition, and you ended up getting exactly what you wanted or what you believed was going to happen because your heart believed it. I'm not religious by any means, but because I have studied the law of assumption and I have studied what I believe are the greats in the law of assumption community, I have also read some of the Bible and I have analyzed certain verses of the Bible. And in Galatians 6:7, that states that God will not be mocked. Now, for me, this was another phrase that it didn't make any sense to me. Was I in trouble if I made fun of God? Well, that's the human interpretation, especially if we don't know about the law of assumption. And if we've had any sort of religious upbringing, I myself grew up Catholic, so my understanding was that I shouldn't do, say, or say anything or behave in a manner that would be disrespectful to, quote unquote, the big guy in the sky. That's what I used to refer to God as when I was younger. It's the big guy in the sky, makes everything happen. So now that I'm fully awake to conscious manifestation, I understand that there's no big guy in the sky waiting to see who's mocking him, only to deliver punishment. God will not be mocked means, to me, how I interpret it, that I can't lie to myself, because that's lying to my I am. In the law of assumption, we're also told to deny our senses. We're not supposed to be deceived by what we perceive with our five senses. Our five senses are human, and therefore they're not spiritual. You're not mocking God when you deny your five human senses and you go within to the place where your I am resides, which is in imagination. So when you listen to your heart, that's a good thing, because that's how God, source, universe, whatever you believe in, speaks to you. When you have a desire, regardless of what that desire is, that is God wanting to express that desire through you. There may be a bunch of reasons why your logical mind thinks a desire you have is a pipe dream. It's not possible. And keep in mind that I am, being impersonal and impartial, it is only awaiting your command. So if the human you doesn't believe it's possible, that's okay. All you need to do is allow your imagination to simply consider the possibility that that desire could happen. Just entertain it. That alone is enough to get your I am working on bringing you that experience in your 3D. That's what I did, without knowing it, without being in any sort of awareness, conscious awareness of the law of assumption. I had no idea what I was doing, and it worked for me. So most of us, most of us are accustomed to living in this mortal coil, the meat suit. I call it the human meat suit, the body, and it's got all of these limitations. And we're so attuned to that we think that that's who we are. And we seldom pause to consider what we really want, because why bother imagining something that I myself used to say, well, what's the point? That would never happen anyway. And that is where we go wrong. So what I'm saying is suspend your disbelief momentarily. Just start contemplating that maybe what you're experiencing actually truly is part of you, because you gave it life in consciousness first. If it's something you don't like or want anymore, then start thinking about what you'd prefer instead. If you're not sure what that is, consider being in a state of total peace and serenity, and that whatever your problem is, you're now free from it. Emmett Fox wrote a small pamphlet called The Golden Key. Now, I read this pamphlet several years ago, many, many times. I've read it almost to the point where at some point in my life, I had it almost memorized. And the gist of it is that he wrote that no matter what problem you currently have, you should only contemplate or meditate or think about one thing and nothing else. There is only God. That's it. Those 4 words. For every problem, every doubt, every worry, every stressful or unfavorable circumstance that you're currently experiencing, you mentally tell yourself over and over and over, there is only God. If you don't like using the word God, insert the word that you prefer. That doesn't matter. The point is to take your awareness off your human self and hand it over to your higher self, your I am consciousness. There is no problem too big or too severe or too impossible that Source, God, universe, whatever you prefer, cannot handle. And when you begin to think that maybe there's some truth to what I'm sharing with you, you'll probably experience a sense of peace if you put this to the test, unlike no other peace you've experienced. Because when you give your problem to the higher self within you, that means that the human you can chill out, because it's all taken care of, or it will be. And all that you need to do after that is trust and surrender. I touched on that in a recent video as well. When worry creeps in, remember that we're still having our human experience. So anxiety, fear, and doubts, they're going to try to overpower you. That's when you return to the same statement. There's only God. Now, who is saying that over and over again? Or who is writing that out or marinating, meditating on that? You are, in your case. I am, in my case, right? Whatever the problem is, trust that your I am has it handled, and a way will be made. One final thing I'll touch on is that your desires are nothing without you, because you're the one that wants them. And therefore, you're also breathing life into either having them or not having them. Well, by the same token, your fears, your doubts, your worries are also nothing unless you keep breathing life into them by putting your awareness on them, your attention on them. So be like Daniel in the lion's den and turn your attention away, and then watch what happens. When you remain firm in that decision, even if you fall out, even if you have some doubts, you decide that you're going to return again and firmly stick to that decision consciously, declaring to yourself that none of these things have life, have power over you unless you give it to them in the first place. you're going to get exactly what you want, because nothing can exist outside of you. Thanks so much for being with me today. I'll talk to you in the next video.